Ja, för nu blir det spännande. Det är ju så här att igår så pratade vi ju lite om det här att klimatomställning och event har gemensamt att de handlar mycket om fantasi, idéer och innovation. Och det är precis vad den här programpunkten kommer att handla om. Hur kan vi arrangörer liksom främja hållbar innovation och nya hållbara idéer, både på våra event men också utanför eventets tidsram och geografiska plats.
Så då ska vi switcha till engelska. Because this panel is going to have some international guests and we're going to switch to English. And before I invite the panel up, and I'm going to say something about this subject. So innovation, experiment, and development. And I would add to that then, because we talked about it here at the meeting, change and transformation. So here we are interested in hearing from people working in the event business about how these events and including festivals can have an effect on the broader society. So that's what we've done now. We've gone from the individual to the organization to the industry to the system,
Yes.
the changing systems. So, and I'm as for you who wasn't here from the beginning, my focus is research on transformation to more just and sustainable futures. So in transformation research, we're really interested, as one of the key focus areas is, of course, as how do we make big change? And of course, we see that innovation, experimentation is key in those processes. So even big systems like the neoliberal economic system, of course, started as an idea somewhere. And sometimes we talk about the Mont Pelerin Society, a little group of people that came together in the 40s and started to think about a new economic system. So of course it is. It starts small, and it starts somewhere. So that's why it's interesting to address this question. And as was pointed out yesterday, Åsa Minos, working for Sustainable Cities, who is one of the funding partners behind Greentopia, she said that not just is it important with innovation, it's not just about new ideas, but it's actually taking the existing ideas, the innovation that is out there, and share them, but also combine them and recombine them. So these places like the Way Out West can be these arenas where we try out some new things. And we talked about that today too, that these festivals can start to establish new connections. There's where the food comes from, how the waste is handled. So new connections, new relationships. So actually, it starts to rewire the system in a fundamentally new way. So I think it also came out in the discussions yesterday and also today that it's not just about innovation and combining ideas and starting new things. It's also about phasing out what's not working. So I think these events and for example, the festivals can also be a place where we start to question the norms. And we talked about the meat norm and the car norm and etc. So we can start to question these and start to contribute to the phasing out of what's not working and what's not the systems that are not delivering just and sustainable futures. So that's why I think this is a very important session. So I just want to say that because there's a quote in my head that says that we have to work as midwives to give birth to the new, but we also have to be hospice workers to work on what needs to die and to let that die with dignity. Because we also talked yesterday about how if we don't take care of those feelings of phasing out, there could be a lot of very ugly resistance from those that are not taken care of. So with that, I want to invite the first speaker and Gwen Sharp. Gwen, come up, and while you come up, I'll say, like, you're the... Yes, big applaud. Gwen is the founder of the Green Room, which is a non-profit organization based in France, which works with developing strategies for environmental and social change and in the music industry. But you also done a lot before that, which is a big, long list, which includes concert production, tour management, etc., etc. But I'm just going to leave the floor to you and hear what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Is this?
Yep.
I'm really happy to be there. Thank you for having me. So I work for, I run this organization called the Green Room. So we are a small team of 3 people, and our main purpose is to raise awareness and to inform musicians, technicians, music professionals about climate change and all the impacts, environmental impacts that the music industry can have. So we work mainly with musicians, focusing especially on touring and sustainable mobility, and I can talk a bit more about that later on. And to do so, we run different types of workshops and trainings, especially for musicians, and always with a collective approach. At the beginning, we were starting to work with independent artists and supporting musicians as individuals, but also the problem with that, and we have a very big focus now in the media with a lot of shaming of musicians that are traveling. I think this is quite strong in Sweden, from what I've heard also from some young emerging musicians, that they really feel this pressure of not being able to develop their career as they would like to, because they have this fear of being exposed because they would fly. So our main focus is really to keep defending the core of their work, the mobility of artists, and also to make sure that the decisions that are being made to green our industry are not impacting the people that are already suffering a lot from climate change or from other issues, especially connected to mobility, and to still have the possibility to travel, to perform, especially when you come from a country where you don't have infrastructures to travel sustainably, or where you are from a country where actually you already have all the effects of climate change since a long time, a longer time than we have. And usually it's also countries that are the less responsible for this. So we also work more and more now with venues and festivals, because I think the pandemic has shown us very strongly how we can get impacted by nature, by something going wrong, and how fragile our system is, because we rely so much on life. And this is kind of a joke, but not really a joke, but it's the way how you adapt also, because we talk a lot about lowering our impact, but now it's a reality. Climate change is here. I guess here it's not, you're not used to have such a warm weather for the festival, so you have to adapt to that. And we could see that also with the live industry during the pandemic. These are 2 examples of how the industry adapted, which one has the best impact, which one can really show a good message, or which one can develop something that is maybe not sustainable for the future. So this is also what we are working on quite a lot. I think it's really important for either festivals and venues to take their responsibilities, but also to think further of the risks they are facing in terms of the prices of transportation going higher, the pressure on energy now, as I said, also the exposure of working with artists from different countries and having artists coming and flying, and also the responsibility that we have as a cultural sector. I strongly believe that we have to be somehow exemplary for this. Talking about experimentation, so we are also working with different ways of touring more sustainably. This is a band from Finland, actually, that toured by bike, but it doesn't mean this is the only way. But it's also showing and experimenting like how you can travel by train, how you can maybe also do something on a boat, how you can do a project closer to your audience, how you can have a residency and stay longer somewhere. For instance, I come from France. I came here by train, actually. People were telling me, wow, it's going to take forever. Well, actually, not so much. It's not so expensive. You have to be a bit organized, but it's doable. And it's also this kind of experimenting things to show that things are possible. We also work a lot on international, but also very much on the European level with different European projects, because we really have to work collectively and to care for each other also, because we know this is going to be a difficult time and really difficult time for the industry. As I said before, contextualization is very important. We don't speak the same way to the artists depending on where they come from, where they are in their career. And also another issue is really to have a very intersectional approach to things, because we strongly believe also that we are not going to solve climate change or environmental issues if we don't go for social justice, if we don't go for gender equality. And I think this is where the music industry, either festivals, artists, venues, have such a strong word. And this is actually part of the work that is being done by a project called Key Change. And I'm lucky enough to be an innovator. And you can meet some of the participants there. And just to end on that and to emphasize also on how important this is, and sorry guys here, but men actually have a carbon footprint 16% higher than women. So yep. Make your conclusions out of that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and I think it's really nice how you address both the phasing out, sort of working with the part of the system that is trouble, and then but also is supporting the new. So I love that, and we're going to bring up the next speaker.
Yeah, exactly. And I also just want to say, since I'm from the industry, I'm a festival founder at an organization called Live Green, and we usually say that events and festivals in particular are like a mirror of society. Because if you, for example, take Way Out West, it's like a temporary city, which has the similar kind of infrastructure and norms as the rest of society. And that's really, really interesting, because we have the same kind of sustainability challenges as we have in society. And it can be everything from being dependent on fossil fuels to racism or sexual harassment. And that means that we can use this platform as an opportunity to try new ideas and try new methods and sustainable new startups and companies. And therefore, I'm very happy to welcome Elisha Weber from Innofest in Netherlands. Please enter the stage.
Well, thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here. My name is Elisha. I'm from Amsterdam, and I'm project lead at Innofest. And Innofest guides impact entrepreneurs to test their prototype during a festival. So I understood that you are from the industry as well, or most of you. So something like this, a festival setup, must look familiar. What we see here is loads of people coming together, enjoying the program, having a drink. We see some stages, we see food trucks. And this turns out to be the ideal setting for to test innovation and prototypes. And why is this? Well, 4 main reasons. The people, of course, that come together there, they're not in a rush. They're there to enjoy their time. They're a great audience, wanting to talk, wanting to explore and get inspired. So that's ideal to test innovations, to talk to. Second, normally this would be a nature site. And when you want to test a technical innovation at a festival site, there needs to be built up an energy grid, a water grid. And this turns out to be great to plug in new innovations. And third, this festival has a specific permit. So sometimes a test would not be possible with the municipality, but could be possible with the permit of the festival, because often it's more flexible and there are more possibilities. And lastly, because this would be a nature site, there's a good measurement point. So it's a good measurement point to actually measure what the impact of the innovation could be. So we test prototypes. And why do we do this? Because 9 out of 10 startups fail in the first 5 years. And why is this? Well, it has to do with product market fit. So a solution is sometimes too early. The momentum is not there. And to give an explanation, example of this, you might know Too Good To Go. This is a skill-up that saves food from getting wasted. And you order a box, for example, from a bakery, and the bakery would have thrown away all of the bread. Like 8 years ago, somebody from the Netherlands had exactly this idea, but nobody wanted to jump on board. No consumers, no investors. So the momentum was wrong. And a second main reason why startup fails is sometimes the solution is good. People are ready for it, want to be part of the solution, but the product is simply not good enough. So that's why we say at Innofest, start, test. Get out there, ask feedback from professionals, from consumers, so you know if your product has the right market fit. That's how innovators can save time, resources, and money, not wasting time on a product that would fail anyway. I want to give you 2 examples of a test we did during a festival. One of them is Greener, and this is a mobile battery that wants to replace the fossil fuel regenerators. We tested with them in 2019, and at the moment they are pretty successful. They recently got an investment of 45 million euros, so they're doing pretty well. And the nice thing about testing at a festival, there are always outcomes that you wouldn't have expected beforehand. So example, this battery, when we tested it, there's always a festival producer, and the producer constantly went to the battery to check if it is working at all. And this was because it was so silent. So the regenerator makes a lot of noise. This battery is absolutely silent. So Greener adapted their battery, so yeah, you could actually see if it was on. So that was a funny outcome. And this is an example of food. We also do food innovations, and this is a drink made from seaweed, because seaweed has many good characteristics. And they thought it would be good to make it green, so the consumer would see that it's seaweed. But the consumer didn't agree at all. So they adopted the color, and they were so happy with testing that they kept on doing consumer tests. We also do social innovations, so we do technical innovations, food innovations, and social innovations. We are founded in 2015 by 3 festival organizations, and they were thinking by themselves, what can we do to make the world a better place? So what did they do? They opened up their festival location for innovations, and we have 230 cases tested, and we're still counting. We developed a methodology. In the pandemic, we had the time to reflect on what do we do, what can we do better, and how can we help startups the best. So we created a methodology, a white paper, and that's actually downloadable from our website. So if you're curious, if you're interested, go visit our website, because we believe it should be open to anyone to use it and to learn from it. How does it work for startups? They can sign up, or we scout them. They get selected by our experts. If they are suitable, we connect it to a festival. Before that, we have inno sessions, so we prepare them for the actual test. After the festival, we evaluate the data with them. Some are ready to launch, some need to redevelop their products, and some even go for another round with us. If we are at the festival, we always organize an innovation tour. We invite our network, and we pass by all the innovations that are testing during that event. We interview them, so we give them a stage, and this makes them credible. It makes the idea and prototype come alive. So this is in short what we do. Thank you for your attention, and let's talk more. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I have a lot of questions about that maybe Sweden also can learn from when it comes to the ecosystem that you have around these entrepreneurs. Because sometimes the system for you know, the financing system is set up in a way that the entrepreneurs have to adapt to it, what's out there, so their innovation becomes adaptive instead of disruptive. So a short question is how is the support for entrepreneurs in the work that you're doing from the government?
Good question, because also there's a financial question that is part of it. We get supported by municipalities, so that's how we finance it. But indeed, they don't have to adapt at all. They actually do their test like it's created, like their product is created, and it's really open to fail. That's I think a key point. We give stage to all kinds of entrepreneurs, and we don't have expectation. It's all about testing and improving and learning, and also about failure. So that's the main point.
Thank you. So we're going to move on with the next speaker, and Patricia Jaue, big hand. So Patricia, well, you can stand and present or sit, but Patricia then is the Live Nation's head of sustainability, and before that you also worked as a carbon analyst. You've done a lot of research around environmental law, etc. So you also have that research perspective also.
Yep.
So please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here, for inviting me and share the stage with these great people, because really when you were talking, I mean, we have so many things in common, and I guess this is why we're here. We are all facing the same issues. So yes, my name is Patricia, and I'm head of sustainability for Live Nation EMEA, that's Europe, Middle East, and Africa. My role is to work with the different EMEA markets to develop and implement a sustainability strategy based off the Live Nation's global strategy. Of course, we have to adapt it to the nuances of the different markets, right? We have different regulation, we have different culture. Culture plays a big role on sustainability. We, Live Nation, well, actually, I started with, after my work as a researcher and carbon analyst, I started with Live Nation exactly in 2019. That's when Live Nation launched their sustainability program. They launched also the environmental charter, Green Nation, which I'm part of it. And the work that we do is around 3 different areas. That's one. The first one is climate change. Then we work around resource efficiency and biodiversity. And the third one is engagement, public engagement. Not only with our audience, but also with our supply chain, our value chain, our artists, etc. And also places like this where we collaborate with the industry, with academia, etc. Because it's very important, and again, this is the reason why we're here. It's very important to collaborate. Only by working together, we can really reach solutions to the problems that we are all facing. So how can we collaborate? Again, we are all working towards the same issues. We want to eliminate plastic pollution from our events. We want to reduce our emissions. As you know, Live Nation is a very large company due to our size. We are producing more than 100 festivals worldwide, globally. We have more than 300 venues also globally. We put out 40,000 events on a normal year. So that means that we have this platform. Everything we do, all the actions we take, the way we produce events, it has a ripple effect, and we are conscious of this, which gives us a great opportunity to test and to be a model of the things that can be done. I have here, I will show a couple of examples of things that we are doing currently. This is actually in the Netherlands. This is in Lowlands. We just opened the largest solar carport in the world. It was it was opened in May. And what we used, what the teams in the Netherlands, Mojo, they decided to use the parking lot, was being just not used during the year to set up these solar panels to give or produce electricity to up roughly 10,000 households. Now, on an average year, Lowlands needs 300,000 kilowatts of energy. So you can do the math of how many diesel we have to use for the generators. So this was a really, really big step to clean and to green the event. So again, going back to the theme of we cannot do this on our own. We need to collaborate. We need to involve the value chain. Recently, we have collaborated with WWF in the Middle East to co-create and involve oral value chain on how we can create or how can we green the event industry in the area, and how can we export that. The first test that we did was with Maroon 5, and this is the image from that event. It was back in May, where we collected data and we used that pilot to make guidelines that can help everyone put more sustainable events. And this project will continue in the coming months. That was just the first event of many, and what we are hoping is to have the guidelines up to COP28, which will happen next year in Dubai. Going back to the point of research, is really, really important for us to collaborate with academia. Again, they have the tools, they have it is their work, right, to do research. This summer, we are collaborating, we're working together with the London School of Economics in the UK. We are, on the one hand, they're calculating the carbon footprint of our venues in 10 different festivals, but also they're using our festivals to test this new theory, which is called Nudge Plus. Now, nudging is something we're all very familiar with it, but they went a step forward, and this is why it's called Nudge Plus. So basically, it's not only about nudging behind the scenes the people, about changing behavior, but it's also about telling them. It's like you are being nudged to change behavior. And what's interesting is actually by telling people that, it makes a huge difference. You know, you will think, oh, if you tell people that they're being nudged, probably they will get upset and say, oh, you know, I'm not doing it. But actually, it's the other way around. You know, they have proved that by telling people, informing the audience and saying, we're doing this and we're testing with you how this is working, it actually works better, and they give feedback, you know, and they're more engaged about it. So this is something we're doing at the very moment as we are speaking in the UK. Also around transportation, with, you know, my colleague has been mentioning, true, it's very important to collaborate with local transportation in a way to boost the use of public transportation. This is an example from Rock Vector in Belgium, where they have collaborated with both the train authorities and also the bus authorities to provide free public transportation to the people coming to the event. Now, this is extremely important because, as we know, transportation together with energy or power consumption is one of the biggest sources of climate change, I mean, or carbon footprint in this case for the live event. So being able to collaborate with transportation companies, you know, to increase public transportation and keep the regular cars parked where they should be, is a really, really big step on lowering the carbon footprint of the industry as a whole. And then how we can test things in our festivals. We are very well familiar with these pictures. This is here at Way Out West. As you know, Way Out West has been a vegan festival since 2012. This has been huge, huge for my company, for Live Nation, huge for many panels where I participate. They always ask me, can you tell us about, you know, the experiment at Way Out West? It's been incredible, and it's a way in which you can show that things can happen and can be done. At first, when we think of a festival, we always think of, you know, burgers, hot dogs. The last thing that you will think, I mean, now it's different, but a couple of years ago, it's like, okay, we can actually have a 100% vegan festival. When they decided to do it, it wasn't easy because everyone was questioning that, but will this really work? Yes, it did. I mean, it's been really successful. You're here, and it's been actually a role model for many other of my teams, where they always mention Way Out West. You know, if Way Out West was able to do it, we can do it. And then I think this is the last, and I can give so many examples, but I don't want to extend. And then I'm open to any questions. But then following also my colleague on how we can support innovators, small startups. In the US, we have collaborated with Everything Legendary. This is a Black-owned, Black-led company of plant-based meat. And we have partnered with them to provide all the burgers with them in all our festivals in the US. So this is how we think it's important to collaborate, to support all the companies, the startups that are at the forefront of sustainable innovation. Because again, I mean, we have the capacity, we have the size to provide this help and to test it, and then we can export it. You know, we can bring it at scale, which I think is key. If we can really want, I mean, if we really want to scale up sustainability in the industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia.
Wow.
I think it's really interesting what comes out here. I think I love that thinking about what can you do when you're big, right? And but how does that connect to the small, the innovation, the entrepreneurs, but also how we change the values? I love that you brought up the intersectionality issue. So how do we question also and put into that innovation also new ways of thinking and also new values in that? So it's really nice. So
really interesting. Yeah. So our next speaker is Hugi Askersson from Blivande. Welcome on stage. I met Hugi a couple of months ago, right? At a seminar which was about digital event innovation. Yeah. And I was very, very fascinated by Hugi's take on participatory culture. So, yeah, please.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, exactly. So I'm going to dive right into it. I think this is the way a lot of quote-unquote normal people feel about sustainability today. It's pretty darn confusing, and somebody talked about it earlier this morning. There is so much complexity, and it's really hard today to, one, just make choices that are sustainable, but even harder to think, like, what can I put my energy towards to help this struggle, right? And I think there's a growing sense that we need to generally become, all of us, better at managing complexity. There is one part of the puzzle which is about simplifying things, but the heart of the matter is these are complex problems. We can just simplify them so much. And for all of us to become better at managing complexity, we need to train. But it looks like it's a teachable skill because humanity's brains have been the same for a very long time, yet we have been able to manage living in more complex societies. So it seems to be a teachable skill, luckily for us. And I have a feeling that there's a different sort of festival, a different sort of culture that really facilitates and can be a bit of a training ground, a playground to train becoming better at managing complexity. These are participatory culture events. And for those of you who are not familiar with these sorts of things, you might have heard of Burning Man, but they are participatory events all around the world. And to these events, the participants bring everything to varying degrees, but they are at least bringing all of the content. And what happens is that participatory culture relies on participants to both create and solve problems, right? So if you want to do something like this is from one of the festivals I've been involved in a lot, called the Borderland. A group wanted to build this structure as their contribution to the festival. They're not paid artists. They're not commissioned by the festival. They're participants. They're saying, we want to build this. This is a huge problem. It's also a big opportunity. So here they are, starting to create problems. A lot of problems being created right there in that picture. This is like a prototype of a lot of huge problems, everything from logistics to permits to understanding how to make the structurally integrity and how can we make the materials as sustainable as we can, right? Of course, there are people involved in this who are architects, structural engineers, etc., to make sure that it's safe and good and sound. But most of the people involved are not, and they're learning along the way, understanding what it really takes. Here they are, creating a lot of problems for everyone, but at the end of the day, the solutions were created, and what you see here is actually hundreds of people lifting up the centerpiece of this temple, which now stands in Denmark and is actually the highest rated shrine in Denmark on Google Maps. So it's an example of something that can be done, and if we can train people to manage this sort of complexity on these playgrounds, I think that we can level up our ability to manage other complexity as well. So sort of what I want to say with this is that if we do exactly what Alicia was talking about and exactly what you were talking about, with that we actually look at the festival not as a place where innovation happens, yes, as a place where we prototype new things, but there's an opportunity to even see the festival itself as a way in which we can actually prototype everything that's needed for the festival to run, right? We could involve everyone here and being much more active in actually creating this festival, learning these things along the way. How does an electricity grid work, and how do you make it sustainable? I think a lot of people here would be super interested in learning that. So we've tried to bring this from the temporary place into a more permanent setting. This is a cultural hub in Stockholm called Blivande that I co-founded. It's me up there. And we're bringing participatory culture to Frihamnen in Stockholm. Sorry, Gothenburg, we also have one, Frihamnen. Here you see some people sitting together, putting some blocks on the ground, co-creating what a container park is going to look like. And this is what it looked like a few months ago. It looks better now, but it's starting to grow. You see all these old containers, they're old for a reason. We try to use used containers, used steel, basically materials that would otherwise have gone to waste. And the same tools that are used for the participatory festivals that we developed for those festivals are used to create this place. Here you see it being created in much a similar manner to what we do in the festival setting. This could have been at a festival, but this isn't a permanent place where people are managing this sort of stuff together, except now it's sort of leveled up. These guys are building an electrical Land Rover, and this guy is building integrated circuits for prototypes. Food sharing is now happening in this place that's built from a grassroots perspective. Food waste is being lowered by that. A lot of unknown consequences that are being mitigated. Flea markets, community gatherings, and here's the ambassador of Ukraine, because there was a culture event for Ukrainian refugees there, gathering 1,000 people in this square that was made possible by these grassroots initiatives. So I'm going to end there. What I'm going to say now is just that today what I work on mainly is building the tools that can enable, I think, scaling this up and spreading these sorts of ideas and methodologies. It's called Co-Budget, and it's available to look at. So the last thing I'd like to say, I'm really interested in to see how can these little cells be replicated and evolved in order to together create a more resilient, sustainable future. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
And now we have our last guest.
Yes, Henrik, please come up. Henrik Utveckling is familiar to a lot of you, because I think he's been in the business for a long time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say that for you who don't know you, you're the director of events at Gut Event AB here in Gothenburg. But you also have a background at the School of Business, Economics and Law at Gothenburg University, and where you wrote, I think I would say, a very famous dissertation.
Thank
PhD.
you. Thank you.
It's called Social Marketing Through Events, and you gotten some prizes, etc., for that work.
Yeah.
So I asked you to come and give you some reflections from that background. Yep.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for your presentations. I will share one reflection, and also I would like to share one or few takeaways from my dissertation, which actually looked into the example that you mentioned, Patricia, about the Way Out West Festival becoming vegetarian. First of all, I think the view of events is changing. Festivals, it's changing. Traditionally, we looked at festivals as something that brought in economic impacts for cities, tourism economics, etc., could help to put a place or a city on the map, so to speak. But I think, in particular, since many festivals are subsidized or funded by public money, we can see them as tools for a lot of more sustainability challenges, which I think you have presented. And it's not only about the 3 or 4 or 5 days that festival is going on, it's about the whole year. In particular, if events are, or the festivals are recurring, then you have an opportunity to work continuously over the years and make impact economically, socially, and as in the case with Way Out West when it comes to climate change. So that is my first reflection. And then when it comes to climate change and behaviors, I'm very interested in that. So when writing my thesis and collecting a lot of data from the Way Out West Festival, I used a theoretical lens called social marketing. It's not about social media marketing. It's about marketing where you use traditional marketing techniques for behavior change. So the product you're selling, it's not a goods, it's not a service, but it's the individual change of behaviors. It's been applied a lot when it comes to smoking or fast safety belt usage in cars, for example. Because if you change behavior, it's good for you as an individual, but also good for society. So that was the lens I used to study Way Out West when they turned vegetarian in 2012. So how can we see a festival when it comes to communicating social marketing messages? I think there are, let's see, 3 fingers. 3 important features of festivals that we can use. First of all, events have the capability to attract attention and to frame it to a certain time and place. And for that sake, they are very useful to communicate effectively. That was also what Way Out West did in 2012. They really used the channels, they used media to get the message out. Secondly, it's about the experience. Anthropologist Victor Turner studied things and came up with the term liminal space, which is some space in between the mundane, the ordinary. And the festival creates a very special atmosphere, which is more freer. It can restruct things. We find new friends, we are more open to new ideas, and for that reason, an arranger, a promoter of a festival can encode messages into the setting, the experience. I think one very good and interesting example of when a vegetarian message was encoded into the festival experience here at Way Out West was when only vegetarian food was served. There was information all over the place about why the festival was becoming vegetarian, and on the stage there was Morrissey doing the Smiths song "Meat is Murder." So I mean that's a very interesting way to how messages can be encoded. And finally, festivals are naturally platforms for collaboration between societal sectors. So I think that is a great opportunity to find a way forward, the civil sector, the private sector, and the public sector. So that's basically my takeaways from the dissertation. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
And how are we doing on time?
We are very late.
Yeah, okay.
So unfortunately, we don't have the time to have the panel discussion. Right. But I think you can still send in your questions, and we will pass them on to you. But I think we should give you the opportunity to just say a few words of wisdom. What is the most important thing you want to share, to give to this crowd? Like 20 seconds.
I just did my best, so I'll pass it over.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very generous.
So look at 3 things, I'd say. Look at power of decisions, money, and information. Make those things transparent, and many other things are possible to follow. If those are hidden, everything is hard.
Well, I would say that we are all in this together, and I know it's a cliche, like we are all in the same boat, but really it is. We need every single one of us, the audience, the promoters, the artists, the suppliers, everyone involved. If one piece of the puzzle doesn't click, we cannot reach any solution. So it's really, really important that you guys are there, that we are here, that we have been invited, that, you know, my vendor asked me, hey, you know, can we do things differently to really, really make change? So innovation, collaboration, I agree. Communication is really key. Thank you so much for having me.
I would say festivals can afford to be bold because the festival visitor is curious, is willing to change. So be bold, but also be flexible and be open to change, but also to failure.
I will second on transparency. I think this is one of the key things. Like, the more transparent we can be, I don't think you can ask your audience to come sustainably if you keep on inviting artists to buy private jets or things like that. So I think everyone has to be coherent and work together. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.